Welcome back, everybody, to the Inside Edge podcast. Today is November 2025. We are coming to you here for episode 11. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful today. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. One guy might be having a better day than both of us, though. The only guy in NHL history with 900 goals.
How about that? How about
Alex
that?
Ovechkin, congratulations.
I always love watching him play. I mean, there's one guy that he scores his 40th goal of his career, his 500, whatever. He acts like every one of them was the first goal he ever scored. No, the enthusiasm he brings to the game. And I remember when he first came into the league, his team had to tell him, just the way he played, like reckless abandon. He would hit people. He would just go through people. He would play on both sides of the puck really, really hard. But they had to tell him hey, you gotta calm down a little bit and back up because you're not gonna last long. Your body will not last long. That's how hard he played right from the get-go. But you can see it in his effort every night. He's the epitome of just a truly great, great competitor and athlete hockey player.
And what a blessing for hockey to get him and Crosby around the same time, where
Yeah.
you have those dual personalities. Where I became a fan of hockey around that time, and Crosby was like the traditional hockey Canadian playmaking,
Yep.
spread it around captain of the team. Where if that wasn't your favorite thing, you had Ovechkin, who played physical, he played hard, he scored goals, he got in the dirty areas, he had Ovi's office, like.
Yeah.
I would have bet any amount of money last night that he was going to score from a classic power play goal from the dot, and it could not have been more opposite and
Yeah.
still more Ovi at the same time, because just open awareness, takes the backhand and throws it at the net, and like you said, Coach, he throws his arms up after. Like,
Yeah.
899 looked the same as 900. This guy's excited
Yeah.
to score every goal.
Yeah. It's easy, like you were mentioning, growing up at that, during that era when they were just coming in the league and starting to dominate. Easy to latch onto. Easy to latch on to those two players as just being fans of them, but also to latch onto the sport. And I think how many kids have a Ovi shirt or a Crosby shirt, millions. And there are other players as well that are in that category, but those two are they're right.
And have been the representative captain of their nation essentially
Yeah.
since they've come into the league 20 years ago. So,
Yeah.
I mean, their impact on the game is incredible. One other moment we got to talk about, though, from the 900th goal was Jordan Binnington.
Oh,
I know you saw it, Coach. My lady showed me this last night, and I could have sworn to her up until the moment where he started to skate away with it in his pocket that it was going to be some sort of joke. And then they cut to the next clip of the ref coming over and being like, "Hey, man, seriously, you got to keep that up." I mean, we all saw that.
you know, it's not like, hey, the Blues have enough to be embarrassed about. They just came off a 7-game losing streak. They won a game, and they got piped 6-1. But Binnington, I have a very close friend who says he's a good guy, but boy, just his antics on the ice makes me want to throw up. When I saw that, I'm like, have a little class, just a little, usually one of Ovi's teammates will come and grab the puck or a linesman will grab it, but that little shithead just, he does it on his own. He grabs it, he tries to steal it, like literally hides it in his pants. And
Does he think he's getting away with it in that
I
moment?
don't
Like,
know. There's a billion
that's the
cameras.
wildest part of it to me, is that he seemed to think he was going to get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when the linesman approached him, it's not like he fessed up immediately. The
Yeah, he
lines,
did the like, "Oh, where? Who, me?"
yeah, 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 yeah. Linesman skated up and say, "Look, we know you got the puck. It's a big, whatever he said to him." And they say, "Okay, okay, I get it." But just to do that, I mean, what a douchebag.
Yeah.
And everyone, I'm reading online that everyone thinks it's cute or that's a feisty fella in there and that's the way he plays. No,
Fuck
that's a
that.
douchey move. That's a douchey move. Like I said, that team's got enough to worry about. They're in last place. That was tough for me to watch someone like that do that.
Yeah, I mean, as a Bruins fan, I'm not the biggest Binner guy, especially being an American as well. He's shoved it towards me a bunch of times. So I'm happy to see him get a little flack. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, Coach, they are the worst team in the NHL in terms of goal differential. Monty said they need to just snap that losing streak to get back on track. And then as you mentioned, they get shellacked 6-1 last night after they get a win. So
The other thing too is that I'm reading a story in The Athletic about analytics and directly relating to St. Louis. And basically, the gist of the story was analytics say that the Blues are actually doing quite better than they are. And I'm like, what the? Are you kidding me? Analytics, and I'm like, hey, how about this analytic? Wins and losses. How about that one?
the
And
one they go off of for the playoffs.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really yeah, I've never been a fan of analytics. I understand them and I get it. I think all it does is create jobs, right? And then the people in that department want to justify keeping their jobs, so they come up with stories like this. It's unbelievable. The only analytics that really should be relevant whatsoever is wins and losses. How about that? Your place in the standings, last. You got to work on that. And, Jim Montgomery is a good coach. I don't know what's going on in the locker room, but when they get beat, they can get beat pretty bad, like last night. And I really don't understand it. But sometimes coaches, they have a short shelf life. And, I think Jim was, he's had a couple of stints in Dallas and then one in Boston. And, longevity, in my book, longevity says a lot. Just like Sidney Crosby, longevity in the league, Ovechkin, longevity in the league. A lot of guys that have played a long time. But when you last in that league over a long period of time and are successful over a long period of time, in Connor Hellebuck, over a decade now in the league, pretty successful. But I'm not real convinced of what's going on in St. Louis, but it would be a little easier to swallow, Gehrig, if Bennington, a guy like Bennington, doesn't pull what he pulls. That just fires me up even more. So
Yeah,
sorry,
it's
my rant's over on that.
no, that's. I mean, I talk about this type of stuff with my dad all the time in regards to baseball and analytics. It's more of a guy who's being put into pitch at times that he disagrees with simply because the numbers say like this guy's numbers are slightly 10 points of batting average below blah 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 blah. It's
Did
just
your dad deal with analytics at all when he played? Probably not.
not so much in the beginning. Towards the end, mid 2000s is when that stuff started to get introduced. Moneyball was 2000s.
Yeah,
But my dad was already doing like his own scouting reports and stuff before that and light analytics, but it wasn't like managerial in-game stuff. Like he wasn't throwing pitches based on percentages. It was
yeah,
more of a like
instinct.
where to pitch to guys and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I believe in as a scout and as a head coach, I believe in what I see. And when you get to know your players, very well, their work habits, their body language, and their instincts. And everything I did was based on instincts, really. But I don't really like having someone point out that hey, according to these statistics, it's not a fan of that. I get it, and I can agree to it to a very small point, but end of the day, you take your gut feeling on a guy away or a situation, I just don't believe. I don't believe in it. I really don't. I believe in it to a very small extent, but like you said, when you have analytics controlling what happens in a game and decisions that are made in a game, I think that's just awful for any sport, baseball, hockey, or any other sport.
Yeah, it's gonna burn you more often than not. That's what it felt like. I don't know. Did you watch the World Series at all, Coach?
One of the best World Series I've ever seen.
Yeah,
And I
seriously.
grew up as a teenager in the 70s, with the Red Sox were this close many times. And the 75 World Series against Cincinnati, some of the best, most historic moments in baseball. And then this World Series, the playoffs in general were awesome to watch. I loved it. I loved, every series was pretty competitive. But this World Series, like game 7 alone, the first 6 games were that way, but game 7 had everything. Didn't the
Yeah.
benches clear? Didn't the benches clear early in that game?
Yeah, in the fifth inning. I
Yeah.
mean, that was. The one question I wanted to ask you, since we are a hockey podcast, Coach, is that the most heartbreaking loss in Toronto sports history?
No,
No?
no, no.
What still has the crown for you?
I would say the Toronto Maple Leafs blowing a 4-1 lead against the against the Boston Bruins. What year? What year was that?
20, well, which time, Coach? They've done it a few times to us.
Yeah,
I
I think
believe you're
that
talking about the 4-1 comeback in 2013, though,
that's correct.
in the third period.
That one I think was right on top of the list, but that's a
I
game
was
they clearly should have won. There's no way they lose that game, but they just stopped playing. And James Reimer was in goal, and no bad goals against. And I'm a good goal versus bad goal. I judge a goalie on when I'm analyzing a game. Is that a good goal, legit, great shot, whatever, or shitty goal? Goaltender wants that one back. And I don't think there were any of those against Reimer. But that loss absolutely drove a dagger into that franchise in the city because that sport is the crown jewel of Toronto.
Yep,
The Maple
agreed.
Leafs are the crown jewel. And I think that hurt. But this World Series was, you know what? It could have gone either way. The Dodgers spend the most money in baseball. Am I correct? And people expect them to win. They've got guys, Otani. I mean, they've got a lineup of just great players. Toronto as well. Toronto was fun to watch. So I look at that one as, hey, this could have gone either way. But when you have a 4-1 lead in the third period in was it a game 7
Game
and
7.
13? Yeah.
There were
I
8
mean,
minutes left. I
yeah,
don't remember, Coach. I only watch it every month. And
yeah,
I show my son every couple weeks now that he's
yeah.
almost 3 months old.
Not a boy. Not a boy.
It's
Think I think that one was a bigger dagger because it's hockey and Toronto. That's it. That's
I
number one.
I have some
Baseball.
friends from Toronto who are gonna hate that I'm even doing this whole questioning with you right now.
I don't know, but I thoroughly enjoyed the baseball playoffs and especially the World Series. You get an 18 inning game, and I think you had an opinion on the
Yeah.
players going in.
I
So
wanted to know if you thought that we should have an e-bug for situations like that. Like in hockey, they have an emergency goalie. Should there be an emergency pitcher for the 18th inning or later for, both teams have to use Joe Schmo from here on out. We got to go home tonight.
no,
Okay.
absolutely not. I love it when hey, all right, we run out of all of our pitchers. Who's our second baseman has experience. He pitched in a little league, so let's give him a whirl or something like that. There's always, and they're prepared for this. They're kind of semi-prepared. They don't ever plan on using someone, but they know who's available. And I'm sure the guys, you would know this better than I, but the positional players probably screw around pitching once in a while on the
I'm sure
side.
they talk. It's not
Yeah.
so much screwing around. It's more shit talking around the clubhouse. Like, I still got it. I could still get up 95, 97. I promise you, in high school and college, I was the guy.
Yep. 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 And but I'm not even a big fan of an extra innings. You got a runner. You got a
The
runner.
ghost. Yeah.
Yeah, they go, start at second base and all that. I'm not a big fan of that. But I get it. And I actually when I say I'm not a big fan, I can accept a little bit because it does, it's even. It doesn't really give anyone a big advantage. But I get it. What do you think about that rule that came in a few years ago?
The Ghost Runner rule, you mean? Only regular season, it doesn't bother me as much. If it was in the postseason, I would really hate it.
Yeah.
It would have ruined that 18 inning game. Would have never
Yeah.
made it that far because they
Yeah.
loaded the base twice
Well, I
already, and then
mean,
in the World Series too.
wouldn't you think if it was a relevant thing to have, they would include it in postseason? So
Yeah,
it tells me it's just kind of BS.
it's a for sure way to wrap up regular season games quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. So not a big fan of that. I get it. And I've been to games. I've watched, when you're at a game or watching a game, you kind of say, okay, we can live with this. It's a good rule, but thank God it doesn't apply, in the postseason now because it would have been kind of shitty, I think. But
Yeah, for sure.
the traditionalists that are around this world and in the baseball world really appreciate that, I think. And I mean, that 18-inning game was exciting. I mean, I know it
Yeah,
was really, really late. I get it, but it was just a great World Series. I enjoyed this one probably as much as any other World Series that I can remember.
Yeah, this was definitely the most memorable one since the Cardinals and Rangers for me, with the David Freese walk-off and Game 7
Yep,
forced the next night.
yeah,
Yeah, the
yep,
Blue Jays, poor Blue Jays had like 5 chances to win since Game 6. They loaded the bases. Ernie Clement was 8 feet away from a walk-off grand slam. They got thrown out at second base by Addison Barger. Vladimir Guerrero hit a double to lead off the last inning, and they stranded him there. Ernie Clement did the same last innings.
yeah.
Shout out to
Wait,
the Blue Jays. They were a fun team to watch, and congrats to the Dodgers, who became the first back-to-back champs since the 99-2000 Yankees.
I meant to ask you your opinion of the bases loaded, one-out situation. The guy got thrown out at plate. Why he didn't get any kind of a lead off of third base in that situation?
I
Did you
could
see?
not, for the life of me, tell you that, Coach. I'll tell you, though, my bigger question coming off of that is why the hell do you slide? And if you do, why do you not slide head first? Because that's the slowest of the 3 options you have right there. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I looked at that and I went and my wife was sitting there with me watching. I go, why didn't you slide head first? I mean, you extend your body 100%. He gets there, uh, but it's a combination of that and the lead or the lack of a lead getting
I
off the
mean,
bench.
you think about the ball that was caught in center field where Paz ran over Kike. Paz got put in that last half inning to pinch hit. He hadn't
Yep.
played yet in the entire. So it's just a million things could have broken one different way. The Toronto Blue Jays are probably World Series champs, but that's why they play the games.
That is why I love baseball. Baseball is basically a chess game.
No
Oh, there's a
clock.
million different things that can happen. And people that say, I always fight for baseball just in the reputation area. I say baseball is boring to those with boring minds, and because with every pitch, so many different things can happen. We witnessed it in the World Series. So I just hope they don't continue to screw up and change rules and just tinker with the game. Not a fan of that.
Going back to the Leafs game 7 that you were talking about, that's kind of the same thing where that like you can't play in baseball to protect the lead. That's what happened to the Leafs in game 7. They were playing not to lose. And that's something as a Bruins fan I've watched far far too much. Baseball you have to make the outs. There's no waiting for the clock to run out or keeping the puck in our end or kneeling the ball. There's you got to throw the damn pitch, dude. So that's why I think it's
Momentum,
awesome.
momentum is incredibly influential in hockey, maybe more than any other sport because of the speed of the game and the
And it
physical
just tilts
play.
back and forth all game.
Yeah, and you can feel it. I had a friend of mine, a longtime friend, very successful player and coach in Europe. He said the worst lead in hockey is a 2-goal lead, if there is such a thing as a bad lead. But because as soon as they make it a 1-goal lead, everyone was looking at each other or feeling like here we go. And that's tough. It doesn't always happen that way, but I've seen it enough times. It does happen. It's a real thing.
Well, I guess that's a good time to transition to talking about it, Coach. You mentioned last episode you spent a significant amount of time overseas in regards to hockey. So I wanted to ask you kind of, is there anything or big challenges that come when you first go overseas, maybe as a young kid or a coach that, is a good blanket tip just to give kids who might be thinking about that option for developmental leagues or coaches that are thinking about looking for opportunities elsewhere?
Yeah, I think it's a great option. Now, when I went over there in the late 80s, I was like
And where
100.
did you go, Coach? Just so people remember.
I went to Aalborg, Denmark, in their NHL, the Danish National League. With me went I was coaching at the University of Maine, and my first head coaching job was in Aalborg, Denmark. And I had a really good old friend of mine, Dana Barbin, who was influential in getting me really interested in going to Europe, summer hockey camps. And he was playing in Europe, and he said, "Hey, you need to go. You're young. You're single. Go." So I went to Aalborg. Dave Nonis, who has been in the NHL a long time, GM of the Maple. He's been in Anaheim. He's been all over the place. I worked in the NHL front office when Brian Burke was the president of the league, I think, or the director of hockey ops. I think Noni is now senior advisor in Calgary, but he's been around a long time. But he and I went over there. We both left the University of Maine. Noni graduated. I moved on in my coaching career, but we landed on the same team, and we actually lived together. We shared a home that season.
That's
Noni,
awesome.
brutal, brutal knees, had bad knees. He had braces on both knees, and the Danish players would watch him unload his braces after every practice or every game and just shake their heads. But he played 1 year of pro hockey in Denmark, and I spent a total of 5 years in Denmark and 5 years in Norway, and enjoyed it tremendously. I really enjoyed Denmark probably more. So, the ins and outs of European hockey back then, getting paid was a big challenge. And getting into a team that was financially solvent was a big challenge. I don't think it's the same way now. I think it's much better. Contracts are actually, it's hard to rip contracts up. I had in Aalborg, I went there on a 1 year deal, signed I think a 3 year extension, and I think during year 2 or 3, the team said, no, we're not winning enough. We're going to rip up your contract. I'm like, wait a minute. We're not going to pay you. I went to a team in Copenhagen, same thing. Signed a 2 year deal there, had great success my first year in a club called Herlev, right outside of Copenhagen. Had maybe my best, most enjoyable coaching year, did really well during the summer. Great story. I'm about 2 weeks from flying back over there, so it was probably late July. I got a call from the team management, the guy that ran the team. He said, sorry, we don't have any money, so don't come. And I'm like, dude, like, what? So, true story. So I go back to the University of Maine as kind of like a volunteer assistant just to keep me busy. Sean Walsh, the head coach, said, hey, come back, help us with our goalies. So I did that, and around Christmas time, they found some money, and the team in Denmark was in dead last place, and we'd come off a highly successful season the year before. So I say, okay. So I go over there, and it was a lie. They don't have any money, and I'm like, God, And what's worse is they told the team back in late July, Joe doesn't want to come back, and he won't be back. So we'll find another coach, and which is a total lie. And so I go back, and right after Christmas, and all the players are pissed at me because I left the
This
team.
guy bailed on us.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And we had so much success the year before and a really tight relationship. And all of a sudden, boom, Joe's not coming back. He's douched us.
Slander.
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't do that. But I didn't know that the players were told that until after the season. Stuff like that is really wild. Moving forward, I think it's an unbelievable life experience to go over there and play. Finances and the contractual obligations are, I think, way more solid than they were 30 years ago. Have to be. And there was a really good goaltender that I worked with at the University of Denver named Evan Cowley. And he's a great example. He was a fourth-round draft pick of Florida, and I don't remember what year, but not that long ago. So he finished his 4 years at Denver, had great numbers at Denver. Florida brought him in, and he went back and forth from the American League, East Coast League, ping pong ball. And after a couple of years, he said, he reached out to me and he says, hey, what do you think? What should I do? And I said, I would go to Europe. Absolutely go to Europe. So we worked on finding a agent that could help him, that has had connections with teams. And so his agent came up with three options, one in Denmark, I think, one in France, and one in Poland. And he took the one in Poland, which blew my mind. He went to Gdansk, Poland. Long story short, he had the time of his life, and he got his European career off the ground. He spent, I think, 2 or 3 years there, killed it, went to Denmark, killed it there, went to France. I think he won a couple of championships there or did very well. And then I think 2 years ago or maybe a year ago, went to Sweden, Allsvenskan, which is like the American League in Sweden. Very good hockey. And now he is the goaltender, the import goaltender for one of the top teams in Austria, the Vienna Capitals. So my point is, he has had an unbelievable experience, a life experience, and he's now married, and his wife is over there with him. But they're living a great life, even in Gdansk, Poland. He said, I just loved it there, just seeing a different country and seeing how these people live here. And He learned a lot about how the world works, about finances, about, different currencies, how to use the train system, how to go to the grocery store when you can't speak the language, you can't understand the language, you can't read it, and you got to go to the grocery store, and you got to really rely heavily on pictures. But it's a great experience. So I highly recommend it. Making it in North America, your ultimate goal is the National Hockey League. It's extremely tough, especially for goalies, because every every organization, the Bruins, the Rangers, or whatever, they're probably 5 or 6 in goalies, two up top, two in the American League, and one or two in East Coast League, and they have contracts. So those teams are financially committed to most of those guys, but they'll have a two-way contract in the American League and a two-way contract in the East Coast League, but they're committed to them, and so it's hard to break in. And my recommendation, go to Europe and maybe start off in a league like Poland, which no one's ever heard, but you'll have a blast. You'll have a great time. You'll love it. Hockey's pretty good. The issue that guys run into is that, especially college players that are used to very structured, a very disciplined lifestyle in terms of that sport, very committed. You don't get that as much in Europe. You have guys that are semi-committed, and they'll give up a little easier. And I'm not talking about any specific nationality. The teams or the countries like Russia, Finland, Sweden, Czech, those guys are really, hockey is everything in those countries, and you rarely see that offset mentality. But they're kind of the lower A nations. You could talk about France, Denmark, Norway. You rip them off. Germany in the lower leagues, the players aren't as serious. So you get a guy that comes over as an import player and, who is really serious. This is my life, playing on a team with some guys who don't take it as seriously as they do. So that's a bit of an adjustment. But you go to the higher leagues, the top level in Sweden, for example, you don't have any of that. Everyone, it's their job and that's what they do. And it's a big deal. And, if you're in Stockholm or any big city in Sweden, it's a big, big deal. So it's a great life experience, though, and I would highly, highly recommend it. And I've run across some unbelievable players. You ever heard of Radko Gudas?
Yeah, of course.
The defenseman, he's now with Anaheim, I think.
Yeah,
Radko
he's a
is just
fire
a
hydrant.
nasty defenseman. So his dad played for me, Leo Gudas, who had the reputation of one of the dirtiest players in all of Europe. Played for me in Norway,
Apple
in
doesn't fall
Oslo.
that far.
Yep. And I remember Radko as a 5-year-old, 5 or 6, coming into my office with his stick and breaking shit and just tearing the place up. And I'm like, Leo, get this kid out of here. Leo's a really good guy, very, very good family guy. And I was really happy to see Radko grow up, especially in that family, to be an NHLer. But it was really, really amazing. Met so many, good people who have become longtime friends. Yesterday, I'm on the phone with one of my oldest friends, a Swedish gentleman named Klaus Ellefolk, and big time agent, um, agent of the Sedin twins, Philip Forsberg, Daniel Alfredson, you name. He's got dozens of NHL players that and European footballers too. So he's a big name, but I'm trying to find a different type of agent in the middle of Europe that can help a couple of goalies that really would like to play there in the coming years. So, but you have relationships and you build them like that. And I did a favor for Klaus's son a couple of years ago, and it was probably 8 years ago. I'm the GM of a team in the North American League, a junior league, and he said, "Hey, my son would really like to come to North America." So I said, "Get him over here." He was at that age. I think he was 18 years old, and a good player, hard shot. He could finish. Just a very dedicated, hardworking kid. And I was the GM, but I wasn't the coach, so I didn't determine ice time. and the head coach just wouldn't give him the ice time that he really should have gotten. But the 1 year he played in North America changed his life. And now, he went back to Sweden, played in the top league, did really well, and retired, is now in his dad's business. His dad works for CAA, Creative Artist Agency, which is one of the biggest agencies in the world for all sports. Look it up, CAA. And but his son is Adrian Elevalk. So these relationships that you build over the years, and there's dozens more, it just makes life so much more fun. It really, really does. But I highly recommend these kids. It's very difficult to make it. If you can make it in North America, great. But you know what? You should really look at Europe, because every country has their own league, and you can go to Australia and play, believe it or not. So a lot of options.
Whether your goal is to play in the NHL one day or just to keep lacing them up as long as you possibly can, that's one of the coolest parts about hockey to me, is that you can go pretty much anywhere in the world and play it. It's one of the most international games. You mentioned a bunch of countries it's super beloved in. I mean, I've personally heard about Sweden. I've also heard the nightmare stories about contracts getting torn up in the KHL and stuff. So I hope it is
Yeah.
better than when guys used to go over there. But that is, like I said, that's one of my favorite parts about the game. Was my brother, who's just started playing when he was a teenager, got to go to the Czech Republic with his team. It's just that type of experience as a young kid is invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, I knew a guy, this really happened, and this was in Russia probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe 20. He's getting paid in cash, right?
Heard that
And
type of story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the team is late paying him, and he starts to, say, hey, supposed to be paid on the last day of the month, or whatever day it was. Where's my pay? I need it.
Where's
And
my
they
brown bag?
finally bring it to him. They bring it to him in a brown paper bag, right? But they bring it to him right before practice. So what's he going to do
I
that?
think I've heard this one.
Yeah, what's he going
Go
to
ahead.
do? I might have told you the story. What's he going to do with that paper bag? Well, of course he leaves it in the stall, and he probably puts it in the cubby hole in a stall or something like that. Well, they go out and practice, and they get back in the locker room, and wouldn't you know it, the money's gone,
God.
and a lot of money too. And who's he going to complain to about it? Good luck. You're in Russia. Those things really, really happen. And some of the stories from back in the 80s and 90s were just crazy. And
I would say do
about
your research on where you're going to go play.
yeah, it's way better now, but still I think that element does exist a little bit, but it's the stories, I've forgotten more stories than I can remember regarding payments, and that it literally happened to me. I'd say out of the 10 years that I spent in Europe, probably 5 of them, maybe 6, I had trouble getting paid fully. And a couple of years, they just ripped the contract up, say, "Ah, sorry, well, we're out of money," and 1 year in Norway. Now, at this time in Norway, I had a family, right? I have a wife and a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and Tanner wasn't even 1 at the time. And we go to a place called Trondheim, and great city, beautiful city, good team, not very well financed, I found out. And you could do all the research you want on the finances of a team, but people are going to lie to you. So I
Life
go over there,
experience is
and
invaluable.
yeah, and I go over there, and probably in June, a little bit earlier, usually go over there in July. Training camp starts August 1. I went over there, got settled in with my wife and 2 kids. And sure enough, November 1 comes, no pay. And that's a one very specific conversation I had with him when I signed the contract. Any messing around with money, and I'm gone. So November 1 comes, and I'm like, okay. I gave it a day, gave it 2 days, went into the guy, went into the office, and I said, hey, where's my salary? And they said, well, we don't have any. I said, well, when do you expect it? We don't know.
It's like a
So how
kid
then?
coming in
How
without
then?
homework, and his teacher's like, "When will you have the assignment?" It's like, this
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And when he said, we don't know, I went, okay, I'm done. So I quietly got on the phone, found a job in a different country, and moved there. And they were, and so in the newspapers, I'm reading, a couple of weeks later, we don't know why Joe left. He just left. He abandoned the
Abandons
team.
team.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, "You assholes," and of course they're gonna come they're not gonna tell them the truth because the truth's gonna make them look bad. And, and the players I love the players. Players are great, great guys, but they were lied to, and they were said, he just left, and he didn't like it here or whatever, he felt he couldn't coach. What they made some story up. I can't remember what the story was, but they lied to him. Yeah, but all of this, great life experience. Great, great, great life experience. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Once you have a family and you got to support your family, I'm not messing around. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and that was the last year I coached in Europe. I went from there in the middle of that season. I left, got a job in Denmark, finished up there, had a great year, and so that's it. My wife was right along with me, like, okay, let's go
Yeah.
do something else. So
It's
stayed in the U.S.
it's like I mentioned earlier, like if I played baseball my whole life, but if I had played hockey and it was one of those things, I knew I wasn't going to play professional baseball or hockey by the time I was 20. I wish there was an option that I knew of when I was a 20-year-old to go play in Europe or Australia, like you mentioned, because that's got to be one of the coolest things in the world for a guy that's, just along for the ride, having a great time, making a few bucks on the side.
Yeah, yeah. My favorite place was Denmark, and great people. But you can have very honest people, very shady people. It doesn't matter what country you're in; it's all the same.
Yep.
You
People are
have both
people.
types. Yeah, you have both types in every country. But my most enjoyable years were in Denmark. And I remember moving there the first time I ever went there, seeing a beautiful city like Aalborg, which is probably not a big, big, big city, but a couple 100,000. And just the shops and the bars, the restaurants, and the history. You look up at the top of the building, and over here, they have a year that the structure was built, and I might say, 1920, and over there it's 1220.
Yeah. That's the cool stuff about.
Going into bars that in World War II were used as, the groups that would get together to fight the Nazis. All right. So, I mean, the history was crazy. So for that reason alone, Europe is a great option. But you got to do as much homework as you can, and it's better than it used to be. But wouldn't trade
So
it. Wouldn't trade anything in the world.
I had three rapid fire questions based on the Europe stuff,
Yep.
Coach. You ready?
Yep.
All right. One, did you have a favorite food that you tried over there?
Boy, yes. What was the pronunciation in?
What's it
Well,
called? Maybe I can help.
well,
Or
no. Actually, the favorite. It's not a food, but It's called. It's béarnaise sauce.
oh, okay.
You put it on steak and
Have you never
potatoes.
had it before you went to Europe, or
Never
is
had.
that wow?
Never had it. Never had it in my life. Went to Denmark and it's a yellow, it's a butter, kind of a butter base,
Yeah, it's
and
almost like a
you
little
put it on
thick.
steak. Holy shit! I couldn't believe it. Like
Yeah.
put an IV in my arm and we'll call it good. But béarnaise sauce, I would say number one.
Okay. And then number two, did you find a new beverage or drink or maybe a way that they drank coffee or something over there that was like maybe not your favorite was, but something that you were like, holy shit, they really drink this over here? Or
Well, yeah, I mean, beer in Denmark, the average, well, a beer in the US, the average alcohol content is like, 3.0 or
yeah, it's like four-ish.
3.2. Yeah. And over there, it's like 10. And one of my favorite things that the Danes would come up with, they would come up with a Christmas beer and an Easter beer. Like
Nice.
the whole place was shut down when Christmas beer hit the streets, and an Easter beer. And the alcohol content was like 12. So I would say the specialty beers. And they also drank everything at room temp. No
That's
ice.
wild.
If you ordered a Coke,
They
you
don't
got
do
it at
ice.
no ice. No ice. And you got
Crazy.
to ask for ice and they'll give you a dirty look.
Yeah.
Like, you want ice? You
American?
want a can?
Okay.
Yeah, typical American. But they drank everything at room temp, and I get to appreciate beer at room temp, and I think there's more flavor to it. And
And
that's
it's
just
easier to
my
drink.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But all right. Anyway, hopefully that answers that one.
And then last one, Coach, something you saw over there, you kind of touched on like the history element of being in Europe. Was there any sites or places you saw in general that stick with you?
Yeah, a bar slash restaurant in Aalborg, and I mentioned it earlier. You know, the brickwork over there, everything is brick in Denmark. Everything. Every house in Denmark is brick. You go to Norway, it's wood. You go to Sweden, it's wood. In Denmark, brick, because of the weather. It's kind of damp and cold, and not always, but a lot of moisture in the air. And the brick buildings look like they did when they were built. They look unbelievably strong and beautiful. But there was this one place in downtown Aalborg, and I really wish I could remember the name of it, but it was used for the anti-Nazi movement. You know, the Nazis invaded Denmark, and they took it over like in a day. But you know, the anti-Nazi movement um, was a real thing, obviously, in Denmark. And in Aalborg, they had this one place, kind of not underground, but you go below ground level, and it looks exactly, they say it looks exactly like it did in the 40s and even before that. But to sit in a large room or a series of rooms where this went on was really inspiring, really. And it just, you know, you talk about history sitting right in the middle of history. I think that's the one place that had more impact on me than anywhere else.
That's wicked. I love that stuff growing up in Boston, like being able to just be in rooms or on the street where history happened. You can feel like a vibe around
Yeah,
the place that, this is an
100%.
important spot.
Yeah, and I think that building was built, I think in the 12, you know, I think I remember looking up at the date, you know, they'll have that area on very top. And I believe it was like 1211 or 1220 or something like that. Pretty
That's so
old.
cool.
Yep. Yep.
All right, you ready for our trivia to wrap it up, Coach? Or you got anything else?
Boy, here we go. Here we go. Let's go.
This one is a little bit themed towards today's episode. As we mentioned at the top, we have Ovechkin with his 900th goal. So, what I wanted to ask you, Coach, was who are the top three goalies in terms of volume, shots, and goals against that Alex Ovechkin has ever faced?
Boy, I would guess,
And there's no surprise. It's three guys you know. It's two guys we've talked about a good amount on this podcast as well.
yeah. Well, Helly can't be one of them because he hasn't, I think he's only given up a handful of goals to him.
7 goals, which we talked about before the show, ain't even 1%.
Yeah. So it has to be someone in that conference.
Yep, you're on the
I
right
would,
track.
yeah, I would say Rangers goalie. Boy, the King. Was he
There
one
it
of
is.
them?
That's the first one, King Henrik.
Is it?
33
Is it?
games
Yeah.
against, 13
Yeah.
goals on 151 shots for King Henrik.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
bad.
I don't know if it could be a Flyers goalie because the Flyers never had any consistent goaltending and never kept anyone long enough.
No
Is
Flyer.
there a Flyer goalie in there? No Flyers.
A guy that used to be on the Flyers is in there. I'll give you that hint.
NHL.
You're on the right path. There's one more that was in his division for a long time, and then another who just so happened to bounce around his division at one point, including the Flyers
Yeah.
and the Blue Jackets.
Yeah. I'm running a blank. All right, I give up. Who was it? I got one. That's pretty good for me.
Yeah, you got the number one with Henrik. Number 2,
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury with 19
Yeah.
games
Okay.
against,
For
13 goals
Pittsburgh.
on 81 shots.
Wow. Yep.
And then number
Yep.
3, Sergei Bobrovsky. 12 games
Wow.
against, 6 goals,
Okay.
52 shots.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. They played. I mean, all those goalies played a lot of years. And how many years has Ovechkin been in the league?
I think
20.
he was 2005, correct? So this will be 20.
Yeah, be 20. I think he's right at 20. That's a long time. That's a long time to produce. So I knew it had to be goalies like that have been around a long time. But
Yeah, 04
yeah,
draft.
no, I feel great. I got one of them anyway. My trivia is not all like spot on.
That was great, Coach.
Great trivia though. Awesome. I love your trivia.
Alrighty. Well, as always, guys, I appreciate you listening. Please hit like, subscribe. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about in the future. And until next week, Coach, I'll see you then.
All right. Have a good one. Take care.
You too.